بتأمل يكون الوقت رح نقضيه سوا مثمر لكلكم، وشكرا كتير لحضوركم معنا. Morning again. Coming in, obviously you've seen 3PL logistics signs everywhere. I really thank you for being with us here. Appreciate the time you've given us in the morning today, and I truly hope that it's going to be a fruitful time, successful conference. 3PL logistics, obviously this is the topic of our discussion today. The invitation said that, the banner said that. I started my career long years ago, and if you asked me long years ago, not going to mention the numbers, what's 3PL logistics? Obviously, probably my answer would have been, what is that? I don't know what is that. Fast forward till today, I'd like to think that 3PL logistics is a household name. Obviously, being in logistics, I would say that. But, 3PL logistics is now core in the activities of a lot of organizations. The question is this the right model for your organization? If you ask me, again, I've made my career selling warehousing and 3PL, I would straight away answer, yes, that's the best model that is suitable for all organizations. But I don't want you to take my word for it. Okay, we have lined up here with us today people from academia, people from consultancies, industry experts that understand and know the industry more than I do. And I'm hoping through the presentations, the Q&As that we will have, we will get an opportunity to answer that question for us. Is 3PL logistics the right model for my organization? I urge you and encourage you to make those sessions as interactive as possible. We have Q&A opportunities at the end of every session. We have a panel discussion at the end. So hopefully through those and those presentation, we will have a better answer to that question. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for being with us, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody. Unfortunately my Arabic is not as good as Tony, so I won't be communicating in Arabic today. It'll be mainly in English. Thank you, Tony, and we really appreciate you serving as today's host and for extending a warm welcome and introduction to our esteemed delegates who are participating in this engaging and enlightening seminar. As you're aware, this seminar delves into the capabilities and innovations of 3PL providers and the significant transformative effects of third-party logistics solutions within the supply chain management arena. Moreover, the seminar aims to discuss the pivotal role of third-party logistics in fostering efficiency and sustainability within the supply chain. Through presentations and discussions along with real-world examples, the participants today will gain a deeper understanding of the strategic advantages of partnering with 3PL providers to achieve operational excellence whilst advancing sustainability goals. We have an exciting agenda ahead, and today it is our honor to extend a warm welcome to distinguished industry thought leaders who will generously impart insights and knowledge on some critical topics. Mr. Aris Sintetos and Mr. Emre Demir are joining us from Cardiff University in the UK. Both are professors of research at Cardiff Business School, and they are experts within the field of logistics and supply chain. So the agenda for today, during session one, Aris and Emre will be discussing unlocking the potential of 3PL. And that will be encompassing the evolution and contemporary trends within the 3PL industry, navigating the fundamental functions of third-party logistics, future trends and state-of-the-art innovations in 3PL, and the benefits of 3PL solutions. Following that, we'll move on to session number 2, where we're going to be joined by Mr. Erling John Nielsen, who serves as the VP and Global Head of Supply Chain Innovation at DSV, where he leads a global team of over 30 supply chain advisors focusing on optimizing supply chains for cost efficiency, service excellence, and sustainability. Erling will guide us through the significant theme of striking a balance between efficiency and sustainability in the supply chain. He will delve into the obstacles and associated challenges around minimizing our carbon footprint. Additionally, he will discuss the role of 3PLs in tackling these challenges and promoting sustainability objectives, along with how scalability and cost saving can be aligned with our sustainability goals. We'll then move to session 3, but that will begin after a 15-minute break for coffee and refreshments. And during that time, we will have the pleasure of hosting Mr. Hakim Ramadan, Director and Partner from Meback Consulting, who will enlighten us on the path to operational excellence. He will illustrate the journey through case studies and success stories of businesses that have leveraged third-party partnerships to enhance efficiency and reach sustainability milestones. We will then move on to session number 4, which will be a panel Q&A discussion, during which the panel will provide additional insights into the various topics that we have today, and we've got the questions from the audience. The seminar will then draw to a close with a brief summary to revisit the key areas and the key lessons learned today. Following that, we will transition to a networking luncheon, providing you all with the chance to engage with your peers, exchange thoughts, and reflect on the main takeaways and topics talked about throughout the event. So without further ado, we'll move to session number 1. And selecting the right warehousing and distribution partner is a key decision that can significantly impact your business's efficiency and growth trajectory. It requires a deep dive into potential partners' capabilities, services, locations, with a clear understanding of how these elements align with your business objectives. I'd like to welcome to explain more on the topic Mr. Aris Sintetos and Mr. Emre Demir, Professors of Cardiff University. Please welcome them to the stage to present Unlocking the Potential of 3PL.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the seminar. So I'm joined with my colleague, esteemed colleague, with Aris Sintetos, to talk about transforming logistics, particularly on the evolution of third-party logistics and its various functions they provide to other businesses. This is my first time in Riyadh and second time in the Kingdom, so I'm very excited to be here. And the room is full, and we are delighted to see all of you today.
Absolutely, exact same thing for me. We have planned our presentation to alternate from one to the other. Really excited to be here. I have also never been to Saudi Arabia before. Absolutely terrific. What a fantastic venue, what a fantastic event. Thank you very much indeed for the invitation. And we sincerely hope you will find what we have to present here interesting. Obviously, there's going to be a Q&A session, and very much look forward to discussion afterwards. So, thank you very much indeed. And with that, let us please make a start. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Aris. I would like to introduce my colleague. So, Aris Sintetos, my esteemed colleague, he's a professor of decision science from Cardiff Business School. He's renowned for research in forecasting, inventory management, and also circular economy. Basically, he also founders and the director of the Park Institute, which is a joint initiative between Cardiff University and the DSV.
Thanks so much. The pictures there are a bit, not the very best ones that we have, but I think they'll just do the job, okay? So sorry about that. Thank you very much. As I said, we have introduced in the Cardiff University the Park Institute of Manufacturing, Logistics and Inventory. It's a genuinely joint university industry initiative. This is quite a rare endeavor. This doesn't happen very often. So we have people from DSV literally residing in Cardiff University, which for us is really exciting because we are able to tackle on a limited basis important problems. In 2016, we had a fantastic appointment as part of the Park Institute. Emre joined us from the Eindhoven University of Technology at the time because we lacked expertise in transportation and routing optimization. So at the moment, we cover collectively what we are doing, forecasting, inventory management, transportation and routing. So we are very delighted, obviously, to have him. Just to mention also that on the back of the Park Institute, Very recently, we have also introduced a strategic partnership between our university and DSV, and that also goes some way to show the fact that third-party logistics providers, they generally invest in R&D. I mean, they try really to see what is the cutting-edge sort of knowledge to be able to apply back to the customers. Right, thank you very much indeed. So,
Yes, thank you very much. And also, I forgot to mention, but I'd like to thank to DSV team, the Hin, Toby, and Tristan, so to have you here today. And hopefully you will enjoy our presentation. We are academic, so it can be a little bit boring, but hopefully you will enjoy it. We have 4 agendas to follow today. So we'll talk about evolution and the current trends of third-party logistics industry. We will briefly mention the core functionalities or services offered by third-party logistics service providers. We'll talk about future trends, cutting-edge innovations based on the latest academic research, and we'll finalize and talk about the strategic advantages of third-party logistics.
super. So, let's make a start with the evolution and current trends in the 3PL industry. What we wish to do in this first part of the presentation, we hope that logically everything makes sense and there is some nice sequence. We would like to take things right from the beginning with some key definitions. What is logistics? What is third-party logistics provision? Again, we assume a general audience here. If we, repeat and make things, very boring, please do say at some point, okay? But we're going to start right from the beginning with some key definitions, and we're going to see what logistics is about, what third-party logistics provision is about, how the industry has evolved over time, all that, of course, rather briefly, where the industry is going, and also what are some key services that they are being offered. We would also like to comment very briefly on how third-party logistics provision compares to in-house operations. Okay, this is something that you picked up right at the beginning of the introduction, which for us is a fascinating question. It's not a straightforward answer, but it's a fascinating question. How outsourcing something to a 3PL compares to not outsourcing anything and conducting business as per usual in-house. Okay, thank you very much. So, do I? Yes. I think in the back of the room.
In the back I cannot be heard properly? No. Is it better now? Obviously it is. Yeah.
Thank you, Aris. So you're all familiar with logistics. As logistics, the word actually comes from the Greek and also the French. So there's a debate. I don't want to enter that debate. But logistics, basically, in simple words, is the process of planning, implementing, and controlling the flow of the goods and services and information from origin to end destinations. According to Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport, which is a charity, they define logistics is the getting the right product to right customer at the right time, right condition, right price, and the right location. So there are 7 rights. As you can see, these are very complex issues, and basically it requires some expertise and technical skills to achieve all these targets. Logistics, the modern logistics, actually when we talk about modern logistics, it goes back to 1970s with the emergence of third-party logistics providers, and logistics industry evolved from the more cost-driven to more basic functionalities to more value-adding services. Traditional logistics seen as a non-value-added service, basically physically moving products from A to B, but now basically logistics service providers offer various value-added services. So logistics network or supply chain network is a big concept. It covers the supply, materials management, and the distributions, and requires some expertise. So here, the third-party logistics providers plays a vital role to managing the whole system, providing various services, including transportation, warehousing, packaging, but also some other value-adding services, which we'll be talking in our presentation.
Terrific. This is the outcome of some work, fundamental research we have been conducting in Cardiff University. Okay, and let me just take you through this from the beginning. Go some way to show the evolution of the industry. From what I have right at the bottom as first PL, in other words, not outsourcing anything, conducting in-house operations, all the way to what appears at some point as a second-party logistics provision, which you can see a direct match of the symbols here to the various boxes, which really in the 50s or in the 60s in the post-war period would be like outsourcing transportation, usually through road transportation. I mean, and you will notice, for example, in the UK where we live, you will see that there are hundreds of companies that traditionally they do only that, road transportation. These are the origins, the very origins of logistics per se. At some point then you have the introduction of the 3PLs, third-party logistics provision, which was a fascinating thing that happened in the 70s really, where you start having integrated services. So the logistics providers, they will come in and they will say, just a minute, we can help you a little bit more than just transporting things from A to B, usually road transportation. Indeed, we can have a combination of transportation modes, by plane or by sea or by train. Of course, the changes in technology did help at the time. And we can do some more stuff for you. We can do the packaging, we can do the warehousing, and also Emra mentioned, and we'll come back to that in a minute. Maybe we can do a little bit of inventory management. So from some plain transportation services, you have an expanding portfolio of services offered by 3PLs, which then it was augmented even further with what we also call 4PLs, where you could start having things like automation and coordination taking place, to what it would be called fifth-party logistics provision, where green logistics they come in, and closed-loop supply chains, to sixth-party logistics provision, where you could talk about automation and artificial intelligence. I think the key points here, there are two. One, there is a wide range of services that can be offered by logistics providers to your organizations. Okay, and indeed, and back to a question that I posed a few minutes back, what is best in-house or outsourcing? It depends. You don't have to go for the full service, isn't it? You can pick and mix. I mean, some of the things that you may want to do, warehousing and transportation, but not inventory optimization and forecasting, or you may want to do packaging and warehousing, but not inventory decision making. So there is a pick and mix element here. The second important thing is that in strict sense, all those boxes here, they correspond to different logistics provision. But all these companies, really, they are being called 3PLs. So, for example, DSV is known as a 3PL company, although it does offer 4PL and 5PL services. So I think that the key takeaways from this slide here is the increasing portfolio of services that can be offered through logistics providers, and the fact that it doesn't really matter how you call it. The important thing is that there are all these services and you can pick up the right ones for you, really.
So we'll just briefly look at the evolution of the third-party logistics industry. That's the most umbrella term we use for the external service providers. So like I said, initially started in the 1970s as the modern logistics with the emergence of third-party logistics service providers. At the beginning, they were offering only warehousing, transportation, and maybe packaging within the warehouse. So that's the standard functionalities they offer. Later in 1990s, basically we see expansion of third-party logistics within Europe and the States, and they provide broader logistics solutions, which Aris mentioned about inventory optimization, whether supply network design, etc. 2000s, basically we see again more functionalities offered by third-party logistics to improve operational efficiencies. That was the theme in early 2000s. And also there were special markets like cold chain, e-commerce, fulfillment, etc. 2010, we see the rise of omni-channel retailing. Basically, they require more advanced, sophisticated third-party logistics based on the increased data analytics and supply chain visibility and tracking. And finally, we hear a lot about artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, blockchain technologies embedded within third-party logistics services. And also we see quite emphasis on sustainability and green logistics practices.
And it is worthwhile saying that we're going to return to this issue, especially on the issue of sustainability, but of course there is a follow-up presentation also on that. Right, so let's see now how things have evolved a little bit in terms of empirical evidence and actual statistics. This is data that we have obtained through databases that we hold at Cardiff University. This particular one refers to a survey that included 300 respondents. The respondents are 300 different companies that they were outsourcing services, that they are outsourcing services as we speak to 3PL companies. Okay, just a couple of notes. It appears there to be 2023. In case that you don't know, statistical information like that is released retrospectively, so we do not hold obviously 2024 figures. Sometimes there is a year or 2 years gap. That's why you see the values there from 2023. And I think the key takeaway here is exactly what we were discussing before. There is a great number of services, but companies, they do not necessarily go for all of them. So this would be the traditional inbound logistics, all the way, to global trade services. Some of the organizations, they would go for that. Some of the organizations that they were surveyed, they would not go for that. Take, for example, inventory management. Well, I think it makes sense up to some extent to go and outsource your inventory optimization to a 3PL. I mean, myself, I am particularly interested in that, and I have been working with DSV on that, how you can do inventory optimization, how you integrate forecasting, supply chain forecasting techniques. We produce algorithms for all that we hard code in software packages. But you may not need to go for that. You may feel absolutely fine with your in-house solutions or with an off-the-shelf package that you buy, I don't know, from Smart Forecast in Boston, and you don't need to worry at all about what 3PLs have to offer you. At the same time, you may well need to worry about that because you don't have something comprehensive in-house. The same, let's say, for omnichannel logistics. Obviously, unless you are involved in e-commerce, maybe this is not of interest to you, but if you are involved in e-commerce, maybe you wish to explore the offerings from a 3PL. So I think this is a really nice one, and when Emra found these stats, we are very pleased with that.
Thank you, Aris. And also from the same study, also companies are asked whether what type of technology services they are getting from third-party logistics providers. This is just their respondent shares. As you can see, the biggest share is the electronic data interchange. That was an issue even when I was doing postdoc 12 years ago. Still, having the right format of data was the biggest issue. So because third-party logistics providers create a platform, so the data can be exchanged freely and easily. So still that's the main focus, but also third-party logistics providers provides TMS system, transport management system, and warehouse management system. You may have already ERP, enterprise resource planning software in-house, but again, that needs to be also linked with the transport and warehouse management. So it's a complete package, various technologies. One of the, I think, the advantage of third-party logistics is technology adaptation and bringing technology for your use, and these are the technologies, some of the software technologies available, and these are the shares that how popular it is among various companies.
Absolutely. To take that a little bit further, this is also some interesting statistics. We don't mean to bombard you with statistics. Obviously, we have been very selective in picking up things that we think they are very relevant, okay? And of course, and indeed, we have much more to share if you are interested at all in that. This is a nice one. I quite liked it also yesterday. We were discussing with Emra as we were traveling here from London. This shows the compound annual growth rate. So this particular one is fascinating because it shows the increasing rate, well, it doesn't have to be increasing, the rate of change in a value within a sector over a certain time period, assuming that this value has been compounding over that time period, okay? So first of all, it shows a 4%, and again, I'm not sure if you're spending much time on that. You will see that compares very favorably to many other sectors. This is a really sort of strong increase rate of 4%. Of course, you will see also here that apart from this little hiccup here, this outlier, I would call it in statistical terms, which of course has to do with the pandemic and the increase of the service provision that was going on at the time. Otherwise, you will see a very nice, actually very well behaved, almost linear trend. I haven't examined the data, but I'm pretty sure it's like a really nice linear trend. Now, what does this show? Well, that the industry is expanding, isn't it? That's what it shows. Precisely, it shows that the industry is expanding. And again, why would that be? Well, my interpretation would be because of the increasing number of services. So you offer more, well, unavoidably you will be expanding. At the same time, I guess because the industry is doing really well, because there is an increasing demand for the services that it offers. That would be the other interpretation from my side.
Thank you very much, Aris. Again, from the same database, we also wanted to look at how the logistics evolved in the recent years. So this is the database. They are looking at the logistics growth in terms of revenues, and in the next slide, in the cost. Here we compare Saudi Arabia with MENA region, which is Saudi Arabia is also part of it, EU 27, European Union, excluding some countries, and the United States. Basically, there are, in terms of size, of course, European Union and the United States size, in terms of size, larger, but you can see a similar trend between the regions. As you can see, there is this growth in terms of logistics revenues, which is shared by various companies before COVID period, which is COVID is kind of an important period also in our academic research. And there's a pickup in 21, my colleague mentioned, and there's a drop, things normalized, and you can see still there's a growth. I think there will be this is a projection, but I assume this growth in Saudi Arabia probably will pick up with various projects, so the logistics revenues will increase over the time. There's another one, just looking at the logistics cost. Why it's important? Because this cost will be covered by the companies or logistics service providers. This shows the logistic cost increase year by year. So here you can start in 2018. Saudi Arabia is shown by the blue line. So the logistic cost to previous years is 18%, drops to -1, -12, and speak up. Here you can notice that MENA region and Saudi Arabia, the cost increase is the highest. I think if you look at the data, our understanding that the reason is because there's high increase because compared to EU and the United States, more companies are working with third-party logistics service providers. So third-party logistics providers observe this cost. And there's this inflation cushion where logistics companies observe. But eventually, when more companies working with third-party logistic providers, this will normalize, will become, act similarly. But still, as you can see, it will cost, will go up, considering the inflation, very similar ratios over the coming years.
Excellent. Which brings us then to the question that we started this part of the presentation with, which is not an easy one to answer, perhaps because the question itself is not the right question. So, right, again, let me start from the beginning. Is it better to use in-house operations or outsource to a 3PL? This is the question. I guess the question itself is a bit problematic because the answer is not binary. It's not that you're either going to outsource everything or you're going to produce or you're going to do everything in-house. Obviously, I mean, the whole thing is dependent on what sort of services you need and what sort of services you think that 3PLs can add some value on. Okay, so out of the increasing portfolio of services that a 3PL can offer, we have found that companies, as I said before, I like this word pick and mix. I guess in a way it's a very British way of expressing things. But indeed you can pick and mix. You pick up the things that you think that 3PLs can add some value with. And if it's just the very beginning of the journey, I presume that companies that start with road transportation, let's say suppose here in the MENA region or whatever is a transportation mode of interest, if you have evolved in the way of thinking and the way that you deliver things, then indeed you may wish to add a little bit of packaging or a little bit of warehousing. And if you are a little bit further down the road in the journey, then I presume that other services they are coming in. And why would that happen? Well, because outsourcing, obviously, and this is not only the 3PL, is more generally, comes with very certain advantages. This is again the outcome of our fundamental research in the university. I presume I'm going to be stating the obvious here. I'm not going to be saying any big surprises. You outsource because, in this case, the 3PLs, they have core expertise. Obviously, they know what they are doing. This is their job. This is how they make money, by moving things around and by storing things. You outsource because you want to reduce your capital expenditure. Well, these guys, they're either going to buy the infrastructure, they're going to lease the infrastructure. This is not of your business, it's not of interest to you what they're going to be doing with this infrastructure. The important thing is that this is not your infrastructure. Of course, they're going to be doing that to introduce some flexibility because outsourcing things introduces flexibility. Because your management time then, it can be focused on the important things that you do. Is it, I don't know, design management, is it manufacturing, is it production, whatever is your core business. And of course, really important, but very much neglected very often, is about the operator licensing and what is happening in terms of local culture and everything. I think that there is this misunderstanding that 3PLs, they lack sort of local knowledge, but obviously, and what we have seen in, let's say, like companies like DSV, of course they have local presence and they know what is going on. So,
yes, thank you, Aris. So just to basically some further food for thought to consider when you make the decision. Like Aris mentioned, it's a non-binary decision, so basically you can have a mixed solutions. But for example, in terms of cost, you need to think about whether managing logistics in-house can be very resource incentive and costly. Setting up warehouses, maintaining warehouses could be quite costly. Do you want to keep this cost in-house or do you want to share with other providers? One of the issues during the COVID, some grocery retailers invest a lot for the online deliveries. One of them is Tesco. They purchased so many delivery vans, and in 2022, basically the demand dropped, and they had so many delivery vans, idle. So there's an issue, there's a big problem. So they didn't think about utilizing the third-party logistics. It could be very time costly, and it can affect your other businesses, so you don't spend time on your core activities. The staffing issues, expertise, of course, the logistics expertise. Basically, you can spend your time on your core activities, and the logistics service provider can spend more time managing the transportation warehouse and some other activities. And basically, you are sharing the risk together. Like I said, if there's an inflation, like now there's a high inflation, it makes sense to work with third-party logistic companies because they can observe the cost.
Excellent. Right, I think that leaves us with about, Emrah, so that, about 10 minutes time,
Yes.
maybe a little bit slightly more than 10 minutes time for the rest of the presentation. Right, so the second part of the presentation, slightly repetition for what we have discussed so far, but we thought it was necessary. Let us explore a little bit more the core functions of the 3PL companies and also what we'll be calling value-added services. So the absolute core things that they come with and where traditionally they evolve from, and also a little bit what we'll be calling the value-added services of that.
Yeah, so there is no really straight formula, but what we consider in the literature, normally the services are offered as a core services and value-added services. Core services, the standard third-party logistics services, including transportation, warehousing, and packaging. When we talk about value-added services, probably the most important ones, inventory control management, including forecasting, returns and reverse logistics, which is highly related to circular economy, which is another important topic. Supply network design and optimization, especially if you are dealing with multiple modes of transportation, technology adaptations, we will briefly discuss about, and the data analytics, again, we will discuss more.
Indeed. And this is how things developed also. I mean, these are statistics I talked about before, a retrospective representation of the stats. This unfortunately comes from 2021, I mean, still very relevant. But for a few years back, because of the lag, you can see here the most frequently outsourced services by 3PL's users. So in terms of domestic transportation, again, as you would expect, all the way to freight forwarding with warehousing, customs brokerage, international transportation in the middle. We suspect, and what we see through our work with companies, is that, of course, it's going to be an increased requirement and increased demand for services that Emrah mentioned before as value-added services, including inventory management and forecasting. By the way, very important to mention also a little bit about our work. We were the first in Cardiff to introduce forecasting as part of the 3PL offering back in 2016. And we are very proud of that. We actually hard-coded forecasting algorithms for 3PL provision. And we did that with what was Panalpina at the time, which was later on, it was taken over by DSV in 2019. Okay? So have actually been researching these areas for years. That's really what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Aris.
Thank you, Emrah.
So basically, again, if you summarize, basically as a core services and value-added services, transportation. So what basically third-party logistics do? They efficiently manage the transportation network, optimize the vehicle routes. So there will be more talk on this, especially very important. This is actually my also research interest, vehicle routing and optimization, and also ensuring the timely delivery, especially very crucial in terms of last mile delivery. Regarding warehouse packaging, then we talk about storage of inventory, order fulfillment, packaging, labeling, and kitting. So offering customizations for customers. Regarding the value-added services, inventory management, optimizing inventory, real-time visibility of inventory levels, and just-in-time. Supply chain optimization, basically whole supply chain network optimization, collaboration, either horizontal or vertical collaboration with other partners or vertically in supply chain, and continuous improvement, where we talk about the lean and agile systems. Technology integrations, we'll talk more, bringing technology to leverage your operations, utilizing TMS and warehousing system, and also regarding the customer service, providing responsive, reliable support, handling inquiries, and enhancing the overall quality. What also we noticed in our research, I do transportation, Aris does inventory, we also see the importance of combining joint optimization of inventory transportation, or in some cases, transportation manufacturing. So actually it gives you overall optimization, which is a bit more advanced research on this area.
Absolutely, and this is interesting because courses that we offer for industry, including DSV's own graduate program that is called Accelerate, we actually integrate exactly these areas. Transportation optimization, inventory optimization, including forecasting, manufacturing management, and logistics, of course, overall. Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Right, let us move then in the third part of the presentation, Emra was very proud of this animated slide here, and okay, so we liked it quite a lot. So let's talk very briefly about the future trends now and the cutting-edge innovations, the technological innovations that the industry is facing as we speak. And we're going to be referring to three things. The first is going to be digital transformation, the second is going to be robotics and automation, and the third one, which is of particular interest to us, is sustainability. And again, as I said before, there's going to be a follow-up also presentation. But this is an area that attracts a lot of attention of what we are doing in the university. By the way, in Cardiff University, we have 45 of us doing logistics. Our department contains 45 people. Right.
Thank you, Aris. I'll just briefly go through one of the topic we picked, digital transformation and artificial intelligence. If you haven't watched the latest OpenAI video, I would strongly recommend you. So the latest status of the generative AI and how it contributes. AI, traditionally I do operational research to optimize vehicle routing and optimization. But in the last 5 years, the academia, people start utilizing artificial intelligent algorithms within operational research, and they improve the quality. Currently, Amazon and Walmart using AI-supported operational research techniques to improve their route optimization. I think that's the way forward. Demand forecasting, basically using AI to power the forecasting methods because so much data available on cloud, and many cloud services offer the demand forecasting. Warehouse automations, because the data is available, again, AI-driven robotics automations contributes and improves the operational efficiency in warehousing. Predictive maintenance, one of the projects we did with logistics service providers, using AI tools to basically predict when their service logistics delivery vans will need to maintenance. Again, that's AI supported. And finally, customer service and chatbots. Again, company with China, we use the generative AI, basically ChatGPT, to improve their transport planning. So as you see, there's so much research going on with industry to use AI in various areas. Another one is robotics and automation. We are all familiar with drones, delivery robots. I think now we will be talking a lot about humanoid robots. There's pioneering companies like Tesla. They are going to use humanoid robots this year, and they are going to sell their robots next year. That's their plan. There is a company called Amazon is partnered with another company. They are trying humanoid robots in their factory, especially if there is a problem with shortage with employees. That might be a solution. So these technologies will be used in various settings, warehousing or transportation, and also last mile.
Last mile logistics is also a very interesting one for us. It was last year that we also ran a joint event with DSV with academic and practitioner contributions. It was a very successful online event where we explored last mile delivery. Obviously comes with very many sustainability questions. What do you do in the last mile? Of course, the whole thing, the motivation here is saving time and saving cost. But of course, it comes with tremendous environmental implications. So how are we actually going to balance all these things when it comes to last mile logistics? Which brings us to the last part in terms of the development of the industry, in terms of sustainability. There has been so much going on. I'm sure you appreciate that much better than us. In Cardiff right now, and what we do also together with DSV and with other companies, we are looking very much at this move from decarbonization to what we call in Cardiff now dematerialization. In other words, it's not only about the environment and the CO2 emissions, it's what you're actually doing with all these materials. What are you going to do with all that stuff that is around, and how you can actually prolong the life cycle of products. You see, recycling is all very nice and good, but recycling comes with, a couple of big disadvantages. One, it is really expensive, and two, it's really difficult. So the question that we are asking now is how you can move from recycling maybe to remanufacturing or maybe to repurposing. And indeed, if you check the global DSV website, either today or tomorrow, there is a new white paper coming out written by us in Cardiff and some colleagues in DSV about how you can induce environmental sustainability through remanufacturing. So particularly fascinating, obviously all the key questions here about supply collaboration, efficient warehousing, how all these things can be very helpful. And of course the whole thing is induced, is unavoidable. Okay, all of us will have to pay more attention to these issues. It comes with the main sustainable development goals. So it is just a matter of time of all of us addressing some of the main concerns. And indeed, all the key bullet points we have here, they are driven directly by the main concerns that they are imposed by the development goals. Right. Let us close because I think that we are about time now to have only a few more minutes. Please.
Yes,
Emma,
just
thank
maybe
you.
in 2 minutes we can summarize. So the last part is more about strategic advantage of 3PLs and actually how working with other stakeholders, for example, like us universities, make your operations better, improve your operations and reduce the cost.
Absolutely. So these are a summary on the left-hand side of things that are currently going on, quite a lot in academia. And also it is fascinating for us. We find it really, really interesting that 3PLs is a very unique sector. Actually, they are investing in inverted commas, okay? It's not only the financial investment, it's in terms of resources and commitment to academics. In terms of R&D, they are genuinely interested in what is happening, how can actually sort of create new knowledge, how can advance knowledge in order, and of course in an ideal position, to be able to share with the entire market. So this is like something really, really interesting here. For us, the main topics that currently we study is how we can create valuable relationships, obviously, with the 3PL providers, so how the services themselves, they are evolving, how 3PLs themselves, and again, is something that is coming, that how they're going to start, and they're already doing it, collaborate between them. The impact of the 3PL, how we measure performance, back to the key questions that we posed about, what constitutes good performance, when outsourcing performs better than insourcing. The technological innovations that we just referred to, and of course all the sustainability practices that they are, I think that really fascinating, is a fascinating area, and one that we're going to be spending even more time. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Aris. And normally academic research goes like 5 years ahead of the practice because maybe it's more theoretical. We don't think much about the details, but as you can see, this is how the topics are evolving over the years. And we have one final slide. Just to summarize the main takeaways from his research is our understanding and actually looking at the companies with different regions. I think 3PLs compare favorably to conducting in-house operations than is outsourcing with logistics providers, and definitely I think our recommendation for you to investigate potential collaborations. You can work at your own pace, that you select services you require, and basically 3PL logistics have a link with universities like Cardiff or other universities, so basically they can bring you a talent and expertise to basically share the knowledge and basically improve your operations overall. What I want to mention, we talk about many things, but one of them is basically using third-party logistics, bring some cost advantages, basically reduce the capital cost, reduce the overall cost orders, turns fixed cost to variable cost. That might be very helpful when there's inflation is high, reduce the total time-to-time customer and shipping cost, because they can leverage the economies of scale, there's advantage, and also they allow you to think about your core functions for services. Yes, thank you very much.
Good, so I'm going to talk about how we actually work with our customers to balance sustainability and efficiency. And I have some good news for you. Sustainability does not have to be more expensive, actually quite the opposite. And I'll show you some examples of that today. So what I'm going to cover is we have quite an ambitious agenda for DSV, so we have formulated some binding carbon reduction goals. I'm going to talk shortly about that. And also, what is it we actually do? What does our decarbonization roadmap look like? What are the levers that we actually try to pull in order to deliver our parts? And then the main part of the presentation, we're going to focus around green logistics. Well, what can you actually do, or how can we actually help you as a company to improve your supply chain performance when it comes to sustainability? So, let's take a look at what we do at DSV. I'm sure you're all familiar with DSV. It's the third largest logistics provider in the world. And we do have a significant carbon footprint. A bit more than 12 million tons of CO2. Or expressed in a different way, it's around 25% of the emissions of Denmark. I know Denmark is not the biggest country in the world, but it's still, a significant chunk. But what you will notice is that when we split it up into scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, scope 1 and 2, that's basically what we control in DSV. Scope 3 is related to contracted freight. What you see there is that only 3% is actually what we control ourselves in DSV. That's our offices, our warehouses, our international business travel, where 97% is basically coming from our suppliers as well as our customers. And if you look at the different transportation modes, then around half is actually based on air freight, around 13% on sea freight, and the rest are based on land transport. So obviously air freight, and you'll see that later on. I'm not saying you shouldn't use air freight. Make sure you use it for the right reasons. And not as a remedy for maybe poor visibility or planning that could be done better, or maybe some inventory policies that are not really in sync with your business requirements. Because that's where you sometimes see that companies, they, for the right reasons, have to maybe expedite things a little bit more quickly than initially planned. And that's costly, money-wise, but also CO2-wise. Talking about our long-term commitments in DSV, then we have signed up for science-based targets. So these are binding targets that we have communicated and committed to. So we have a reduction target of 50% in absolute terms compared to 2019 baseline that we have to achieve in 2030. And when it comes to the subcontracted freight, so Scope 3 emissions, we have a reduction target of 30% in absolute terms. So again, if we grow our business, then the challenge is going to be even higher. And we have plans to do so. And longer term, we have a commitment to actually achieve net zero by 2050. You might think, why are we actually doing this to ourselves? I mean, this is a huge challenge. It takes a lot of investments. I think if you look at the business environment, and also as the two folks from Cardiff University highlighted, this is a tectonic shift that is happening right now. This is going to be the new normal. And certainly, I can say in Europe, if you ignore this, you are not even going to be invited to the table. Maybe 5 years ago, this was an order winner, but this is actually an order qualifier. So if you don't take sustainability seriously, you are not invited to the party. We see this happening in the US as well. We also see customers in Asia picking up on this. And I also understand that in the kingdom here, there's also a lot of ambition when it comes to that. Okay, so what do we actually do to decarbonize the DSV? We can actually divide that into 4 areas. The first one being around energy efficiency and optimization. Again, the good news is if you can take waste out of your supply chain, it's actually great for your wallet and equally great for the environment. It's actually good practice that has been done for hundreds of years, eliminating waste. Sometimes we have forgotten that. The second lever, finding ways to basically decarbonize, to deploy battery electric vehicles. There's a lot of things going on at the moment in that particular field. But also sometimes looking at, you would say, battery electric vehicle is really reliant on how clean is the energy coming out of the grid. So we have to be careful there. So sometimes just making sure that we use the newest engine types can actually bring significant savings to the tune of 20 to 30%. So it doesn't have to be, I mean, common sense does prevail here, right? The third one is making sure that we actually use our assets to potentially produce renewable energy. So in DSV we operate close to 9 million square meters warehouses. And we are actually now working on getting solar panels mounted on the rooftops there. So we have some pilot projects on that. And this is really, I would say, a key thing that we try to change, in particular when it comes to our solutions or warehousing and distribution. So we don't only want to be passive energy users, but actually active energy producers, where we then use the energy we produce ourselves to run our warehouses, to charge our vehicles, and the surplus energy will then send that back to the grid. And then the fourth lever is really, again, subcontracted freight means that we are not owning the vessels. So we are working with the likes of Maersk and all the other carriers to ensure that they are staying on top on their decarbonization plans. We are working with the hauliers that we use as well. And of course we have a lot of reliance on them to ensure that we become more successful on this interesting journey. So it's nice with PowerPoint, isn't it? But actually what we have done now on the battery electric side in Europe, we have already ordered hundreds of battery electric vehicles. And by end of 2025, we will have 300 vehicles in place. When we look at 2030, again, in order for us to deliver on our science-based target commitments that I mentioned earlier on, we will need to have 2,000 battery electric vehicles in place. We will also look at other technologies. And again, that's where we need to be very specific on which technology do we use in what specific market. Again, as I mentioned, using battery electric trucks in Poland, for instance, right now doesn't really make sense because that grid is, is fossil based. Where in the Nordic countries or in Germany, it's a different story. There you have lots of renewable energy. UK, same story. So that makes sense in those areas. I think this one we covered. So again, we are working on specific projects right now on specific warehouses where we are implementing these solutions. And it's actually not as easy as it looks. It's not just about mounting these and then it's all done. You need to work with the local utility companies to ensure that when you sort of connect a big facility that potentially produces a lot of energy to the energy grid, that you're not sort of overcharging that system. So there's a lot of things that has to be worked out. And we are getting those learnings now. And I'm sure we can bring those learnings to the Middle East as well. And to the kingdom of Brazil. If you manage a P&L, and we have a few of these in the room from DSV today, it can be a challenge to find the money to invest in sustainable solutions. And we realized that in DSV, so we've actually imposed an internal carbon tax in DSV. Why have we done that? Well, first of all, we know this is what is happening in the EU at the moment. And you can rest assured about one thing, it becomes more and more expensive to emit carbon, most certainly in the EU. We think longer term this will certainly come in other parts of the world. So we want our organization to be on their toes. And we don't want internal P&L considerations to sort of get in the way of doing the right thing. So there's I guess a slight element of Robin Hood in this. We basically collect the money and then we hand it back again to those organizations who have some great ideas on projects that we should invest in, where maybe the return is a little, it's not as obvious as it is right now, or as it would normally be. So we can basically incentivize that we do the right thing. And also, in some instances, some of these technologies are new, so we have to also allow a little bit of experimentation so we can learn from it. Green logistics, what is it we do? I know it's a busy slide. We basically, so this is sort of a set of solutions we have developed in order to help our customers to decarbonize their supply chain. And the first step is really to ensure that you have visibility in a consistent manner of the CO2 emissions. So we basically provide that visibility to our customers today, down to a shipment level. Actually, you get CO2 on your invoices. And also, and I'm going to dwell on that, the rethinking logistics, actually doing supply chain optimization, you can actually find ways to reduce CO2 emissions while making sure that your costs are being controlled or even decreased. Third element, warehousing is not just warehousing. That can be done in many ways. Not only the way you construct a warehouse, which in itself can burn a lot of CO2 emissions, but also the way you operate it. And this is where we, in DSV, we try to be at the absolute forefront. And I know, Tristan, you can talk much more about that, in what we actually do in the Middle East than I can do here. But this is happening right now. We also know that sometimes once you have optimized and you have done all the right things, there's still something left. So what can you do? So if you have a reduction target of 30 or 50% in absolute terms as we have, then optimization might not be enough. We offer sustainable fuel solutions to our customers, marine biofuel, sustainable aviation fuel, HVO for land transport. Yes, it does come at a cost, so at the end of the day it will be a trade-off, depending on what is the right balance for your company. And you know that better than I do. It really depends on what is your customers at the end of the day willing to pay for. And then I would say the last resort, once you've done the four first things, if there's still a residual left, then you could actually do carbon offsetting, or we can support you with that. But that's definitely not the place that you start. So carbon offsetting would be that we have a partner who invests in, for instance, green or in windmill energy somewhere, or in reforestation. There are different projects that can be done. So how is it we work with customers to optimize supply chains? We basically work on four parameters. So cost optimization, nothing new, that has been around for donkey years. Looking at lead time and service levels. CO2 emissions has become very important. I would say it actually started already in 2010, but then it kind of went a little bit away with the financial crisis. But it has really come back in full for the last 3-4 years in particular. And it really seems to accelerate now. And then I think we have all learned a few lessons during COVID. If you ignore risk and resilience, at least I know a few customers who got burned in the process. It was all too lean, organized, then you had no flexibility, then you learn it the hard way. So understanding, if we do a network design, what is the risk that you actually take on, and how do you manage that in a way that makes sense. The way we work with customers, as we say in my team, we try to really design supply chains for the real world, making sure that we are not only being the smart architects that come up with great improvement ideas, but making sure that whatever design we come up with actually makes sense in the real world of logistics. And it's not a precondition that you end up using DSV for the service. That would be a simple decision you need to take. But it starts out ensuring that you're actually clear on your requirements. what kind of supply chain do you need in order to serve your customers? And then at the end of the day, making sure that you actually reap the benefits or the value that you're looking for. Looking at some of the services, and I can see we've actually, I'm very much in sync with the presentation, the previous presentation we got on supply chain optimization. It always starts with you as a customer. What is your business strategy? What is your value proposition to your customers? What are the derived service level requirements for supply chain strategy? And the first part is really understanding which supply chain metrics should apply. I see a little bit too often that companies are running what I would call a one-size-fits-all supply chain. I'll give you an example of that a little bit later. So is it really, what are the key metrics? Is it reliability? Meaning that as long as you're there on the first day at 10 o'clock, it's absolutely fine. Whether it took a day or two longer doesn't really matter. Typically, you use that if you talk inbound manufacturing, so for instance, into an assembly line. You don't want too many surprises. On the other hand, if it's a supply chain where it's difficult to predict demand, and the cost of not being able to satisfy demand fast enough is key, then responsiveness or speed to market is absolutely key. But these two supply chains, the one based on reliability or one based on responsiveness, they have very different price points. If it's reliability, maybe we have time to use ocean freight, we have time to consolidate shipments. But if it's responsiveness, you don't have time. Then maybe you have to use air freight, you might have to use parcel services. It's speed over cost. And obviously that also carries different CO2 price points. Transport optimization. What can you do to optimize your transport equipment, whether it's a container or it's a truck? And also, is there anything, are you actually using the right mode? Do you actually need the speed, or can you go a little bit lower on the speed? Maybe use a combination mode instead. And how does your packaging actually enable efficient transportation? We're not experts in packaging design, but certainly when we can see the way that pallets are being configured, sometimes if you can't stuff things on top of a pallet box, you're going to lose a lot of capacity in a truck or in a container. Network design, how many warehouses do you need? Where should they be located? What distribution network structure is actually the right one to use? Inventory optimization. Are your inventory policies in sync with your service requirements? To what extent are you overstocked, understocked, or perfectly stocked? What do you need in order to create more confidence in the way the orders are being raised? Because if you don't have that confidence, maybe you have to actually overuse air freight. And we know that's not necessarily good from a costly CO2 perspective. Now let's try and make it real. This is a customer case. We talk about intercompany flow from the factory that the company controls into their warehouse. From UK to Belgium. Full loads. I mean, how difficult can that be? And this is not a small Tom, Dick and Harry shop we're talking about. This is a major international retailer that actually are quite sophisticated when I look at the way they run supply chain. But the thing is, supply chains, they change all the time. You can't just do the design once and then do it. So basically, when we looked at it, we saw that, just looking at the pictures, if you can see them in the back, certainly those lorries were not full, far from. Sometimes there can be good reasons for it. But we actually took a look at all the loads coming into that warehouse during a 2-week period, and if we sort of reconfigure that in a way that would make sense, without compromising the lead times, we actually find ways to reduce CO2 emissions by 28%, and even better, a 35% reduction in transportation costs. So again, greener is not necessarily more expensive. In this case, it's actually far cheaper. We're just removing waste from the supply chain. Another example, looking at consolidating containers, making sure that you actually that you fully utilize the equipment. So we took a look at just 2 lanes for this particular customer. And instead of just, or is it actually that some of your components are being used in the manufacturing line, and where it's actually more important that it gets there Tuesday at 10 o'clock rather than as fast as possible? And they actually said, yeah, absolutely. The majority is actually falling in that category. Then we said, okay, maybe pure ocean freight was a little bit too much, a little bit too unreliable. So let's come up with a solution that actually works, I would say, because we do it all the time. So basically doing ocean to Dubai, and then the air freight from Dubai to Europe. We have plenty of air freight capacity. And to cut a long story short, they can always halve the CO2 emissions by doing that. And at the same time save 17%. And we even looked into if they took that 17% and invested in sustainable fuels, they could actually reduce their CO2 emissions by 60%. Without touching or adding any cent to the operation. Just being smarter about what they do. Now states get tired because are you sure you have your network? That the network is actually designed for a purpose that is still relevant. We had a significant international customer. They had a significant footprint in Europe. 4 warehouses. They were running it more as a one-size-fits-all supply chain. Big cleaning machines, spare parts, running in the same setup. Very different from a logistics perspective. When we look at the upper picture there, you can see that it's actually how those 4 warehouses were served in Europe. And it looks as if we have duplicated some of the pictures. So there was not a consistent, they didn't serve their customers in a consistent way. Is this the first time that I see this? It is actually not the first time. So it's not that we've come up with an odd example here. So basically what we did was we recalibrated that network. We also centralized all the spare parts in one DC close to a parcel injection hub because they were using parcel services for the spare parts. And you can certainly serve entire Europe in one spot when you use parcels. That was not the issue. We would still maintain the service levels. And at the end of the day, this represented a 22% CO2 reduction, a 17% reduction in logistics cost, 9 million euros per annum, and even a reduction of lead time out to their customers. So simply they could serve their customers faster. So what's not to like here? Inventory and CO2 emissions. Okay, maybe that's a little far-fetched, isn't it? Well, hang on, and by the way, we're almost there. So we are working. We've been working with a big OEM in South Africa, and they're basically sourcing their parts from different parts of the world. They operate 2 what we call PDCs, so parts distribution centers in South Africa, and they are serving 44 dealerships. Very complex SKU base of almost 200,000 SKUs, which I guess is typical when you talk spare parts, and a quite complex system landscape. Key issues: basically their service levels towards their customers were in the low 90s. Which means that, if you can't provide the spare parts and repair somebody's car, there's a fair chance that that individual is going to choose another workshop next time. And that was basically the issue. So that was key challenge we need to solve. So basically by putting some science and structure to the way that they were ordering the parts, we achieved a couple of things. First of all, we managed to actually increase the stock turn, so basically getting rid of all the obsolete stock. We also rebalanced the stock levels in certain areas where they were actually understocked. And the sum of that was actually that we enabled their dealers to increase their service levels by 6 percentage points from early 90s to late 90s. And it translated into a significant sales increase, a 15% sales increase. And all these numbers are confirmed by them. And they actually told us if we could even get that and have to pay a little bit more for it, they would be prepared to do that. Who wouldn't be prepared to do that if you could increase your sales by 15%? But they got this sweet deal with a 14% reduction in supply chain costs. So transportation, warehousing, inventory, holding costs. That's what we're talking about here. And a part of the planning as well, which we do for. So, key takeaways from this session. We're looking at an empty container as a symbol of all the waste that we see in global supply chains. It's the biggest commodity we're transporting in the world of logistics. It's actually empty air, empty space. So again, if we can optimize that, if we can simply find ways to address that waste, it's a slam dunk. You saw the numbers, these are real. You can do something great for the environment. You can save a lot of money that you then can decide to use for other things. And again, you also saw that, and I think that this goes for many companies, that most of your emissions are actually controlled by your suppliers, by your customers. So I think what is absolutely key is that you need to start collaborating with them because you cannot solve this alone. And I think, in all modesty, the 3PLs, this is the kind of work that we are doing. We have a lot of expertise here that we can bring to the table. So work with us, work with your 3PLs. They can basically support you on this journey. Then also, if you haven't taken a look at your network for years, if you think your supply chain is optimized, because you did it 2 years ago, well, the world has changed a lot. It's a continuous process. So don't underestimate this. Again, these companies we are working for, it's not that they haven't done it before. The business has changed. We all live in a dynamic world, and this is an ongoing task. And this is where 3PLs can support you as well. And then, I think maybe if you go 5 years back in DSV, we had one department in sustainability, part of group compliance. They were handling the CO2 reporting and these things. And we certainly realized that if you want to really make an impact, you need to make sure that this is actually disseminated into the organization. The way that you think, the way you operate. It's far too important to leave to one department. So you need to think cross-functional, cross-company, and cross-industry.
Okay, welcome back everybody. Hope you're all suitably refreshed and ready for the second half of the seminar. Now, companies face increasing pressure to optimize their supply chain operations to remain competitive and meet evolving customer demands. Many businesses choose to partner with a third-party logistics provider because of the numerous benefits that enable them to improve overall performance. By leveraging the efficiency, scalability, expertise and technology offered by 3PL services, businesses can position themselves for sustained growth and success in today's competitive marketplace. Please welcome Mr. Hakim Ramadan from Mibak Consulting to the stage to present session number 3. He will be providing insights and case studies on how businesses have leveraged 3PL partnerships to enhance efficiency and reach business objectives.
Thank you very much, Tristan. Thanks to Hind and Tony for inviting us today, me and my colleague Anand, to share with you some insights and case studies from the region here, from Saudi Arabia. And today I would like to go through the presentation, and we'll join later the Q&A session. So who we are, I think Mibak Consulting, we are a German company presented in more than 26 countries, and we are here based in the region in Dubai and in Saudi, in Jeddah. I'm not going to say too much about the company. We used to be the, let's say, supply chain and logistics engineers, but what we do is over 50 years history, like we can support our customers with the entire supply chain, end-to-end journey. So today, what we'd like to share with you is how customers here in the region can really boost their efficiency and support their business to grow healthy and to focus on their core competence and not to focus on the supply chain and the operation tasks. So the presentation is divided into 3 parts or 4 parts, let's say. The first one is how to harness the 3PL capabilities. Second part is based on some examples, how sustainability and agility can support the customer grow healthy and save cost as well. And finally, case studies from the region. And of course, if we have some time, some snapshots from our survey, which also I think shows the same figures what we do frequently every 2 years, worldwide survey, where we reach out to shippers, global shippers, key customers, and also operators. So why outsourcing is so important for the business? I think this is very important because I think the colleagues from Cardiff have said enough theoretically, and Erling also as well, is there are specialists. So the 3PL providers can support their end customers, or let's say principals, or like the shippers, by providing added value, not only for the last mile, let's say, but also, like as mentioned before, I'm going to go quickly through it, such as kitting and sticking and doing the services. Example, if the customer has already outsourced the warehousing, then it makes sense that the operators do also these additional values, like kitting at their sites, not to bring them back to the warehouse or to the manufacturing or to the distribution center to do this work again. This definitely would save time and would save cost. I think one of the most important things here is what we see also from our surveys is initially when customers started outsourcing, they were focusing on cutting costs, reducing the costs, reducing the assets. But what we see currently is that it's not only reducing the costs, but also looking at the cost variabilization, which means is just to outsource all the operations so that customers would focus only on their strategy, on their business, on their core competence, not to focus on the operations. But what we see later on that this is very important, because for this partnership, I think both have to work together on this task to be, let's say, transparent, as Erling has mentioned, and to be visible, yeah, for both parties. I think very important is when we do the outsourcing or propose outsourcing or optimization or transformation for our customers, to look at the different legacies, the different regulations and standards to be applied for the different products, whether it's dangerous good, whether it's chemical, whether it's handling pharmaceutical products. And in this case, you have to look at it from both sides, which means the region here is, we know it, we do manufacturing here, but we do also distributing, which means it relies also on imports, which means the customer has to look at the full package, import, export, and of course the distribution in the region. So I think this is what said also together with the value add, that if the customer is outsourcing the assets and outsourcing the operations, he will be able to focus more on the business development, on his core business itself. And I think what we have realized in the last few years, that in case of disruption, in case of what happened in the Suez Canal, I think with the Evergreen ship, what happened in the, let's say, recently also, it's very important to have a partner who is capable of meeting and handling any disruptions in the operations or, let's say, in the market. And this is why, like a mature partner can support definitely when it comes to certain disruptions or crises. Again, one more thing is we know that here from the market, customers are growing, and customers are growing in diverse operations. And here is to have a partner who can provide also specialized services. Example, low temperature, frozen, for frozen goods, or let's say return management, or for hazardous goods. This is always, it's very essential to have a partner who can provide this service at a moderate cost. And of course, reducing the complexity by giving away this daily work, day-to-day operations, which also support the customer in times of fluctuation or in times of resource, let's say, inavailability of the right resources and so on. And of course, a partner who can provide best in practice from our service, like how to handle dangerous goods, or how to handle best practices when it comes to transport management services, or when it comes to using state-of-the-art technologies in other countries or regions. Yeah. So one important thing is when we talk about sustainability is, I think what we have heard is, yes, there are the goals, the ESG goals, which have to be met, and Erling, I think, mentioned something about how different customers and different service providers are targeting to have a low CO2 emissions, or let's say to reduce these emissions, or let's say provide technologies which provide savings for the operations and for the customer. What we see here is from existing customer study that a US-based pharmaceutical company was focusing on reducing warehousing nodes here in the region, and with a focus on, let's say, focus on the service and cost in Saudi Arabia. And it was important for them to implementing lead standards to, let's say, to reduce the electrical power consumptions or to reduce the emissions in the warehouse. What important is here is that if you have the right partner, an experienced LSP can help you, or let's say can support with his experience providing the right technology at a lower cost. Example, a customer wanted to migrate from lead acid batteries to using lithium batteries or fuel cell, hydrogen cell for his business. This would have meant an increase in the investment if he would have done this by himself. However, partnering with an experienced LSP, a logistics service provider, who can provide this and can utilize the operations. Because, you know, if you are using lithium battery solutions, means that you have to utilize them 24/7 and not use them for one shift to be able to have a moderate return of invest. And I think building an agile supply chain is very important to meet certain crises, as what we have mentioned before, but it's very important also to have the right solution, which means if you have different, you have to meet different, to reach different customers in one area, you need to have the right setup and the right network to be able to efficiently reach all your customers with the shortest time and with a lower cost. So what we have seen is in the times of the disruptions as trade wars and natural disasters and political unrest, the alternative supply chain, as mentioned by Erling before, can help the customer to overcome such challenges and still save his business and supply, let's say, to his customers at the right time with, I think I missed one slide here. Sorry for that, that's why I was gone. Yeah, sure. No. So what we'd like to say here is actually one very important thing is that selecting the right LSP is very crucial, and it's not that you have to select an LSP because he is a rock star in his region, or let's say he can meet your current requirements. It's very important to meet current and future requirements. Example, if you don't have any demand for EDI, like electronic data interchange currently, but in the future you might need it. This should be considered in your assessment. So whenever we propose, let's say, outsourcing strategies, we need to look at the full picture. We need to look at the entire business model. Where are you now, and where we'd like to grow? I think what we know here in the region, especially in Saudi Arabia, we see figures about, let's say, 200 to 300 growth until 2030 or 2033. And this is a big challenge. So if you would like to set up a business to handle your operations in the short term and in the midterm or future term, which means you need to be very agile. You need to have the right partner, and you need to identify the right criterias, which we have looked at before: the efficiency, the value-added services, the cost factor he would share with you. And it's very important to have a full transparency on this partnership, on the model, because the visibility of the operations, the transparency, and of course, the trust. This is a very important topic here. You have to build the trust with your partner to be able to succeed. Yeah? And at the end is, I think, the service we'll go quickly through the last presentation. So at the end is the service the customer is expecting from your side is quality and cost reduction. And quality, we know it all. If the customer comes back another product. So I think this is one of the case studies we have done here in Saudi for a customer who you have seen about eating chocolate, I think, in the region. And this customer was already working with us, with the service provider, yeah? But the important is, if there is no transparency and no visibility about the current business, you cannot improve and you cannot save money. So the initial stage was that the customer was working with a 3PL, having more than 8 warehouses in the region, yeah? And the idea was to reduce complexity and free resources, and of course to decrease greenhouse gas emissions. From the operations side, what we have seen is that the customer had in 3 warehouses frequently either SKUs which are aging or out of stock, and actually was spending a lot of money moving the goods from one area to the other to be able to sell it before they got expired. And this means like intersite shipments and underutilized trucks frequently. So what we have done is actually, together with the customer and the 3PL, analyze the existing operations. And what we have done is, let's say, to eliminate 3 warehouses, and we were able to optimize the network to deliver the right quantity with the fully utilized trucks on time. And actually, what we have done is really leveraging and handling the capabilities of the 3PL. So identified with the 3PL, what is his fleet? How does it consist of? Does he have the suitable fleet to ship either full 20 tonners, or in case of low transportation, only maybe 5 tonners? This is where you need to have the right partner with the right asset to ship on time and with the right truck and with the right quality. And this is important when we say sustainability. Yes, we can look at it, and you can reduce emissions by applying and using the right strategy. What you have seen here is, as a message, the customer was able to save 8 to 10% on costs, logistics costs, and more than 1.2 million kilogram of CO2 emissions. Another case study, actually, this is also one of the largest medical devices company globally. We're shipping products by air frequently from Europe to the region. And you see into three continents, more than 90 markets, and along from 1 DC in Europe. And what we have proposed is to have a DC here in the region where the customer can have products in the region and can ship at lower costs and can increase the availability, capability to reach more customers and to reach, let's say, deliver on time with less and with less costs. So more efficient supply chain at a lower cost, which means this is the same what you have said is instead of flying the products frequently, have a central warehouse using by sea transport and from the region either by air or by land. So what you see here is that the reduction in costs were up to 27%, increase in sales fulfillment, availability to sell more, availability to have to maintain his customers, 30% more, reduction of 32% in inventory carrying costs because you have less movements and you have maybe you don't need to keep stock on Europe and you don't have to, let's say, enough or too much stock, let's say, in Europe to be able to reach all the markets anytime. And you will have 25% improvement in service lead times because of you are more closer to the market. So we'll go quickly. This is what you have mentioned, Imra, in your presentation. These are snapshots from our survey report, which we have done. You are welcome to have it. If anybody would like to have this report, it's available either on the website or you can reach out to us. You will get it. What you see here is, these are the reasons, for example, this is for Germany. What are the regions for the logistics outsourcing? So, yeah, from the shipper's point of view, what you see here is this was in 2023. So cost reduction, and you see here that the variabilization of costs is becoming more or higher than the cost reduction. Concentration on core competencies. This is very important. What you see here is service improvement and maybe avoidance of investment is still, no, not here. Increase of adaptivity are still lower, but avoidance of investments are increasing as well. So this was the international, let's say, comparison between Germany and the rest of Europe and Latin American and others as well, where you see it's almost, when it comes to cost reduction on the variabilization of cost, the tendency is the same, whereas when it comes to service improvement, it varies from region to region. And this is the reason for outsourcing from the service provider point of view. It's almost similar, cost reduction, concentration on core competences is very high. This is how they see it, how the 3PL see it. Service improvement somewhere in the middle range. And of course, what's very important is for them as well, how do you see it? Avoidance of investments. So what we see here is, I think these are the similar trends, what you have also the final slide. What you see is the different criterias and KPIs when it comes to why for outsourcing or why shippers do outsource. From cost reduction, and this is, I think, the agenda is missing here. So what you see how the difference between 23 and 20, I think these were the last two surveys, how the perspective or the trends are changing. Very important, again, you see cost reduction is becoming lower, whereas variabilization of cost is increasing. So get rid of assets, get rid of investments, focus more on the business development and focus on manufacturing or sales.
Thank you, Hakeem, for the really good examples there and insights into how we can leverage 3PL providers' services and efficiency initiatives. So we're now going to move on to session number 4, which is a panel Q&A discussion. So I'm going to be joined by all of the speakers from today to look at some of the questions that we've sourced from the audience. And then we'll open the floor after maybe 4 or 5 to see whether anybody's got any questions from the audience. So give us a couple of minutes, we'll get the chairs on the stage, and then we'll get going with the Q&A. Who's a Senior Principal and GM from MeBack Consulting. So as I mentioned, we've got a number of questions from the audience to be addressed by the guys on the floor here. We'll start with question number 1, which is to the team from Cardiff. And the question is, what are the top 3 key impacts or benefits of 3PL, and what are the reasons behind their significance? Mr. Cardiff.
Thank you very much, Tristan. Thank you very much for the question. I think that's what we discussed in our presentation as well. I believe the benefits of using outsourcing third-party logistics services are substantial. There are many factors, but most likely the most important one, which is also the part of sustainability, is the cost advantage. Because third-party logistics companies can leverage economies of scale, they have expertise, and also they are close to acquiring the technologies. So basically, expertise, technology, and using the economies of scale can help other companies to reduce their cost. And we mentioned a couple of cost items earlier regarding the order-related or about, for example, changing fixed cost to variable cost can definitely benefit other companies. Maybe the other item would be scalability and flexibility. For example, logistic companies, they have extra capacity, and that helps a lot if the demand increases. And also if the demand decreases, then again, they can take the risk, and that helps other companies to leverage their operations and improve their operations. So if you assume the demand is gonna stay this stable, then probably that's easier job, but we know the demand will change over time. And maybe last thing, we also mentioned in our presentation, I think a very important point, basically logistics companies take the burden of logistics, transport, warehousing, packaging, and other services. So that helps companies to think about more their core functionalities. So they can spend more time on what they do the best, which is very important. They can focus not just management and also operationally to improve their operation. I think that eventually improve their operational efficiency, reduce cost, and make it better environment for them to grow. Would you like to add anything else?
Perhaps, I mean, we did say quite a lot about sustainability. I would like to ask this team, but if you have a little bit more time, I can comment on that a little bit later.
Please do.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really natural for 3PLs, I mean, to help the companies engage in that journey with sustainability. I think it's very natural. We have seen that repeatedly
how it works. I mean, 3PLs, they have a good overview of the entire supply chain, and sustainable solutions usually involve more than one player, so it's not an endeavor introduced by only one company, usually involves more than one player. And of course, 3PLs in that way, they have the opportunity to influence developments. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Question number 2. Now, we've heard a lot about sustainability. Everybody's been touching on it today in some way, shape or form. And we've delved into emissions reporting and trying to balance decarbonisation with network optimisation. So question number 2 goes to Erling, and the question is, what are the elements that yield the highest value for your clients in terms of sustainability and CO2 emissions reduction?
Well, I think we showed today that if you optimize your supply chain, it's a great way to remove waste from your supply chain. So this is definitely where you should start. One of the things we actually haven't talked too much about today is that in order to optimize, and another benefit you get from the 3PLs is getting the data foundation in place. That is, when we do these optimization studies, we always stumble into data problems. And sometimes I wonder, we talk AI, we talk a lot of fine technology out there, but the data foundation is still not in place in many companies. And I think that's what you're tapping into from a 3PLs. We are experts in setting up EDI connections, in basically getting those data points in place so you get the visibility and control in your supply chain. So that is critical if you really want to do optimization that makes sense at the end of the day. I think we saw the different disciplines, whether it's looking at fill rates, never gets out of fashion. Network design, I think we saw a case from NIBA, one from DSV that actually confirms the same story. There's money to be picked up there, and certainly there's also ways to improve your service levels. And in exchange for cost savings, we even do something great for the environment. But really, visibility and control is also what's going to enable you to run an agile supply chain at the end of the day. Because if you don't have the data foundation, you can simply not do it fast enough.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Erling. And totally agree. I mean, it's kind of a perfect storm, really, in terms of when you look at sustainability and you mix that in with driving efficiency in the supply chain. There's so many areas where you can optimise and reduce costs and also have a really good impact on your CO2 emissions. So well worth looking at in more detail and capitalising on those opportunities where we can. But data, obviously, is very, very important. Making sure that baseline. We can have all the AI in the world, but if we don't have the baseline data, then we're working on stuff that is really going to translate into pretty meaningless information.
Then you're going to get the wrong results faster. Of course, that's also fine, but maybe that's not the purpose of AI in the first place.
I have another question for you, Erling, coming up here, and it's mainly around the major obstacles and timelines involved in transitioning from in-house operations to 3PL, and where and what point does it become evident? Obviously, people are at different levels of their supply chain journey in either moving from 2PL to 3PL to 4PL up to 5 and 6PL, where they're going to be getting more benefits and what have you. But if you're moving from 2PL to 3PL, at what point do you start realising the benefits?
Again, if you want to outsource something, it's very important you get clear on your requirements. What exactly is that you want a 3PL to deliver on? What are the key metrics? What is the scope of work? So the better you can be prepared on that front, the better the results are. So you can't just throw it over the fence and then close your eyes. Right? It's your business. You need to remain in control. And the way you do that is get strong SOPs in place, standard operating procedures with the 3PL, have clear metrics, and then drive those metrics. together with your third party. And then, of course, what are the difficult part? You need to get the IT infrastructure in place, get the right metrics, and that's the foundation for actually measuring how you do on those metrics that are relevant for your business. And then it's about working as a partner, right? It's building that without the trust. If the trust is gone, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think you've got to be very consultative. You've got to trust in the journey that you're going on, and you have to make sure that you have that alignment at the beginning and make sure that you're managing expectations. Because if people think they're going to realise huge benefits within 1-2 months, you've got the hypercare, you've got the period of stabilisation, it's not going to happen immediately. So it's all about managing expectations and making sure that we're properly aligned with objectives and goals.
And using a 3PL, it's not a cookie cutter solution, right? We can customize that in a way that makes sense for your business. So you cannot just take a model that has been maybe applied by another company and believe this is exactly what we want to do. I think do yourself the favor and then really be clear on the requirements. What is it? What is your value proposition? What are the service level requirements? What is relevant for your business? What is the nature of your products? I think that's very, very important. And that's sometimes where I see that you either overdo it or you end up with a solution that is maybe too complex or the opposite, not complex enough. Yeah.
Thank you, William. We'll move on to question number 4 for me back. And very similar question really to the one that you've answered there earlier, or certainly picking up on a lot of the topics that you've covered. And the question is, if transitioning from 2PL to 3PL is under consideration, what criteria should be considered beyond price when selecting a suitable 3PL provider?
From the same 2PL provider to converting them to a 3PL provider, or you are the 2PL?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could be either or. It could be an in-house operation. There could be outsourcing. As Cardiff said, there could be outsourcing the transportation or something like that. So there's a whole host of criteria that we've talked about today that people need to take into consideration. But what would you say the main critical criteria over and above price when selecting a 3PL provider?
Clear. Thank you. See, what the business models of these two different businesses have to be considered, right? As a 2PL, if I am the 2PL service provider, I would maximize on rent per cubic meter or reals per cubic meter that I can achieve from each of the properties that I'm renting out, right? Whereas a 3PL service provider is a bit more holistic in their approach towards any business. So there, in addition to the price, I would like to understand the 3PL providers' fulfillment centers, warehouses or any facilities. How well equipped are they to handle the variability of my service requirements? How well equipped are they to merge with the technology or IT platform that I want to bring? I don't want to have a situation where everything has to go back to PDFs or Excel files. Right? And last but not the least, I would like to understand how scalable is my 3PL service provider. Because when I'm sitting with when I'm doing a 2PL or doing it myself, like the colleagues from Cardiff explained, I have total control also, and I also have total immunity from the costs that are going to come up when I throw curveballs at my service providers, right? I could easily ask my warehouse guys to wait for 2 hours more, get a little overtime and finish the job. But if I have to throw this over the fence, like Erling just mentioned, to a 3PL service provider, now I'm struggling to pay for this at a higher cost because they would have optimized everything else. So, to come back to your questions, just to put it in bullet points: capability of their facilities, capability of the infrastructure, IT infrastructure, I mean, capability of the whole system to manage my service variability, and last but not least, how flexible stroke scalable are they?
And maybe if I can just add one point, which I think is very important, is that your service provider actually has the experience and also the guts to challenge you in a positive way. that they can drive continuous improvement programs at a strategic level and actually follow through on those joint plans that we end up with. I think that is sometimes, you don't want somebody who's always telling you, yeah, absolutely, you're right. You want somebody who will actually challenge you and say, have you considered this? We actually did this for another customer. Potentially that could work for you. Somebody that stays on top of best practices and bring those ideas to your company when the timing is right. But also sometimes push you a little bit, again, challenge you in a positive way to consider if there's another option out there that you have not considered.
Yeah, completely. And more about having an open mind and, not being set in your ways and more about the partnership and being a bit flexible and understanding that, what's worked somewhere else could also work for you. And again, being a little bit more consultative and open and honest about where you are with your supply chain and what impacts can really be made at different levels. Okay, a couple more questions and they are for Cardiff. So what factors contribute to more advanced development of third-party logistics market in Europe and the US compared to this region? And what do you consider the primary reasons behind this discrepancy?
Thank you very much for the question. Definitely, I mean, in this room, people have more experience than me regarding the region. But what I feel, when we did the presentation, we talk about the modern logistics. I think one of the important topic is the market maturity. Three-part logistics industry had more time to mature compared to the region. So let's say last 40, 50 years, they had experience offering basic core services, transportation, warehousing, and they had time to build on that, offering value-added services, inventory management, supply chain design, network design, or bringing different technologies into practice. So I think that's one of the factors probably makes the difference. And maybe the other one is the economic development as well. I mean, the Europe or states are the largest economies. They have high levels of industrialization. They have high level of skills. They have trade power. So they all contributed logistics sector to grow and think out of the box to make investments, find the required skills, make innovations. I think that all working collaboratively help them to grow. I'm not saying this is not going to happen in the region, but I think it's a great opportunity for many ideas to bring here and apply it. They don't need to wait 40, 50 years. I think there's so many collaboration, there are many people here, so we are all together to think about, we know the examples, we know they contribute, they improve operations. So basically there's a good chance for, really applying in the country and make it even better. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, totally agree with what Emra just said. I can think of maybe 2 or 3 more things to add to explain what is happening. Another one would be, following from the market maturity, would be the market competition for sure. And we do know how competitive is the market in Europe and in the US. Now, is this a good thing? Well, when it comes to fostering innovation, yes, competition has been shown to be a really good thing. So the more competition there is, the more innovation is created, the more technologically advanced solutions, the greater the benefit that is coming for the customers. So perhaps that can go some way to explain what is happening. Talking about customers, obviously we're talking about the customer expectations, and the customer expectations sort of, they are different than in the US, let's say, and in Europe as to what is happening. And of course, in terms of the technological innovations, and I'm not saying here that Saudi or the region, they are lagging behind technological innovations in general, but here it's important to talk about specific technological innovations, let's say, warehouse management systems, where again, we do know that, let's say, in the West, in Europe and in the US, there have been tremendous advancements there, and some relevant things. We talked about forecasting, inventory optimization, all these relevant issues. I think all these things collectively, they operate in, how can I put it, maybe in some sort of a virtuous cycle. If you think of dynamics, one influencing something else, which again influences something else, all those things are obviously interrelated. But I will say that the market maturity that Emra mentioned, the market competition, the customer expectations and the technological innovation, collectively they contribute to the end result. Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah. Please add, yeah.
See, one of the clear differences we see from inside out, right? That's a very good perspective on that. One of the clear differences we see from inside out is who is driving the market in terms of logistics, right? In most developed economies, the principal drives the logistics needs. The market here is slowly moving out of the distributor, trader, stockkeeper mentality towards a logistics service provider mentality. This is a big difference, right? You were getting a share of the profits before. You were part of the sales team. You were merchandising. Now you have to move all that out and become a logistics service provider who's given a specific KPI of meeting an OTIF order, right? So that it's a big difference compared to, for example, in Germany, where we have worked on projects where the logistics service provider is only taking care about the logistics, and like Erling mentioned, coming back with saying, based on our logistic experience, you can change it like this. Here it is, the principles were, again, I go back to his, I like the phrase he used, principles were used to throwing things off the fence and say, please handle Saudi Arabia, right, completely. In general, because I don't even want to start get out of the ship, get down from the ship. My ship is there, please take it and start selling or distribute it the way you want. Now that's changing. We see many distributor businesses trying to mature, trying to become logistics service providers within themselves. Now they have many companies are transitioning from a typical distributor to, I'm a distributor, I have a logistics service provider who in turn can service the market and me. Right? So it's the inside out perspective.
Yeah, completely. Thank you very much.
Can I ask something?
Yeah, you can, absolutely. The final question I've got here has already been covered really with what you've been talking about. So we're talking about, AI and all that kind of stuff, but please add.
Just a small anecdote. So basically we are academics. So what we see, 3-4 years ago, we started a new MSc program. It's called Sustainable Supply Chain Management. And previously we had Logistics and Operations Management. And the Sustainable Supply Chain new program become very popular and now is attracting more students than before. So why? Because companies are interested in sustainability, students are interested in supply chain management, and they are asking for new innovation, new technologies. I think we can see we were very quick adapting these new requirements. Maybe another thing as well in the region, acquiring this talent, the skilled people, and giving them training so they can really start working with companies within the region.
Yeah, very important. Okay, we've probably got time for one more question, which will go to me back, if you wouldn't mind closing the Q&A with the final question.
Yes.
And the question is around adaptability of providers over recent years, and what shifts have really occurred in customer expectations regarding delivery times? How have 3PLs come up with innovative strategies to meet those changes in customer demand?
Okay, sorry for that I have to do a two-part answer.
That's fine.
So the historical problem we used to have in the region like 12, 13 years ago was that there was this combination of the retail outlets being the kings of the market, plus the truck bans imposed by the local transport authorities would end up in a combination of the truck always showing up at 3 a.m. in the morning and waiting till 9 a.m. in the morning to get it unloaded, right? And this is okay if you're a distributor, like I just mentioned a minute ago, but not as a logistics service provider anymore. Then you're not able to scale, you're not able to change. So 3PL providers in the past used to adapt to this by changing their fleet structure quite a bit. Also, like Erling mentioned earlier on, challenging a little bit the order structure itself. Why am I forced to deliver twice? Or why is this supermarket ordering 6 times the same? I mean, every day I'm getting 6 orders, and I know that for the 2 of the SKUs I'm servicing maybe 30-40% of the pallet once since day 1 and again in day 2, instead of on day 1 servicing one's pallet and asking them to consume it over 2 days, right? This is a conversation between the store and the service provider. So this used to be the traditional way of dealing with it. With the push from the Middle Eastern governments towards e-commerce and avoiding of, also supporting in the payment structure, right? Because that was also holding back. How can you do online payments? Because the penetration was really low. at the advent of this, logistics service providers now had to adapt to the new change where the number of ship-tos did not just grow, it exponentially blew up. Right? You used to have 400 stores or 4,000 stores to deliver. Now you have 45,000 addresses in one city. So to cater to this, what we have seen our logistics service providers do is go to the dark store or micro fulfillment center concept. Like every urban, I would say, locality has a dark store to it, has a predictable pattern to it, and what we have seen happening is the logistics service provider or the 3PL company is now able to demand based on instead of the principal or the distributor telling them, I will send you 6 trucks of, take the example of a beverage, right? I will send you 60 pallets of the 300 ml beverage and 400 ml beverage. They are now saying, we know the demand pattern over the last one year. So we would say, we would want this. So they place the order. The micro fulfillment center becomes the demand point or for the distributor. Or
it's like VMI.
Yeah, exactly. And the second adaptability is in the way how we are dispatching from these fulfillment centers or from the warehouses. If you earlier saw, there was always a series of docks. There would be variability in, okay, I have a Dyna, I have a 4-tonner, I have an 8-tonner, I have a 20-tonner and a trailer, and I would try to always fix my delivery, and there is van sales, so I would always try to fix my delivery, slot it into one of these. With the advent of service providers who are now able to do parcel by parcel, now you will find a marshalling area with something like, I mean, this was the Amazon concept, where you have a place full of pigeonholes where you consolidate an order, keep it in the pigeonhole, and the service provider picks it up from there and delivers it. So adaptability is coming in 2 directions. One, our dispatch mode is changing. Second, the location of the warehouse is getting closer and closer to the customer.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. We'll do a very short wrap-up unless we have any input from the audience. Anybody got a question for the panel today? Yeah, what do we have here?
First of all, thank you very much for the session today. It was very informative. I have just one question. 3PLs, we understand the benefit when it comes to the SMEs or the large international companies. But how this works with a local large company that has its own infrastructure already in the market? So how 3PL can support in this? I don't think it's from a cost perspective because already they have the economic scale, they did their own optimization. But how they can do this from a 4PL, 5PL concept when it comes to the AI, it comes to more technological aspects. So how 3PL can come and penetrate those kind of markets, because we are in those companies and we are trying to do this kind of change management, but it's very difficult with kind of costings that we have because we are already optimized. So this is my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. Anybody want to take the lead on that one? Erling?
I can give it a try. No, I think, whether the scope is, as long as your business has a certain size and a certain level of complexity, whether the scope is only, and only in brackets here, covering one market, I mean, you're still going to have some of the same challenges, right? You still need to, the kingdom it's a big country geographically, right? I don't know how it compares to Europe, but I guess it's fairly close to Western Europe, size-wise. So you have some of the same complexities. How do you ensure that you end up with the right logistics footprint? And transportation, same challenges, whether it's international or it's domestic. How do you make sure that you sweat your assets in the highest possible way? And then, in order to do this, you need that data foundation. So I actually think what we do, whether it's an international company, it's a big domestic company in Saudi, it's the same challenges that you're facing. And it's the same techniques, the same things that we can contribute with as a 3PL.
Any?
I'll take a thought. I mean, as Erling has answered you perfectly from the perspective of how a logistics service provider looks at this problem, right? That's actually a very good perspective to have. If I try to answer it from the customer perspective, as for example, how do I justify going out? Or for me, in the last 8 to 10 years, the entry point of saying this is a threshold where I will go for 3PL has actually reduced. It has come down drastically. And the elements that are going into it are no longer, I have 700 pallets per day to ship. It's, I have 700 different types of orders to ship. Point number one, right? This flexibility and scalability is not easy for a manufacturer, distributor, trader to fulfill. Yeah? Your assets, for example, as a manufacturer, trader, distributor, even if you build one, if you have a return on investment of, let's say, 7 years, beyond this, then you have depreciation to counter for. Yeah? And it's not easy for a company to actually say, I have 4,000, I have built a 10,000 pallet warehouse, and I seasonally see that I have a 2,000 to 2,500 drop in my inventory, 2,500 pallet position drop in my inventory. How can I cross-utilize this? This is very tough because you would have built the warehouse or facility center or any asset very close to the demand. Right? A 3PL operator has the flexibility to basically use this in various ways. If they build a 10,000 square meter, 10,000 pallet position warehouse for a demand for one customer and they find out that 2,000 is available, they can actually cross-utilize this without too much trouble. So they have the capability, and therefore they will, if you take it over a 15-year cost of logistics model, you will easily see that you can outsource quite quickly already starting year 6 or year 7. Numerically. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, partially. So the only thing that... sorry, like a follow-up for this question is, if currently we have the infrastructure, so what I got from this is how we can use the 3PL when it comes to the gross part. So when there is a gross, we can outsource this kind of gross, but keep the infrastructure now. But the part of the sustainability and the optimization when it comes to the cost, usually large companies already went to the optimization because using their own economies of scale, so they don't need, or they are already at the lowest cost possible according to the volume they have. Comparing to other SMEs that they need the economy of scale comes from the 3PL itself because they're combining different loads together or having optimized warehouse. So the idea itself is that yes, we need the technicality or the expertise of the 3PL from different regions. They are all having the best practice combined in one but the only thing that always stops this kind of partnership is the costing part. How we can play on the costing parts that it can match a large company that has already very low costs. How we can generate more benefits to the same cost, or we can lower the current cost. This is the idea, to penetrate.
See, to start with, the cost is a function of how much time it takes or what it takes to deliver each order or each of your shipments, right? In our recent experience, what we did for the project that Hakeem was showing, displaying for this, moving to a 3PL from an existing principal-driven network for this pharmaceutical device manufacturer, was that we first started with we did a due diligence on the process costing, right? It was not a monolith cost. Usually you're stuck with a monolith cost and you say, I need X reals per pallet moved, right? And what do you call it as moved? Is it like I'm bringing it to the dock and taking it back? Is it a cross-dock movement? Is it a pallet movement, and etc.? So what we did for this customer is we actually wrote down the process and then listed all the processes and said, we can offer that some of these will always be clubbed, right? If you put away something, there will be a picking to it. So then we clubbed these processes together and brought in process transparency. Okay, what it helped the customer understand, in which you are wearing that shoe now, is that what does it cost for each of my operation and where am I struggling? And then that's the point Erling made, right? The 3PL operator was able to say, why are we doing this 80 times a month? This is the one thing that is costing the highest. So when we start going as much depth into the process as possible, we are able to identify these, I would say, hidden opportunities to reduce. Okay, and this could be because, and when you move it out of your facility, out of your constraints, now they have the flexibility to do it in a different way. Yeah? If I say I have a warehouse which has necessarily 86 aisles, therefore I need a minimum of 40 trucks, reach trucks to fulfill, right? I am forced to do this, and my process does not allow me to keep cross-utilizing the resources, and then I have a fixed cost per pallet. But if you take it out, this constraint, you will find that the 3PL operator is able to do it at the same operation, exactly same what you need as per the business, at a lower cost.
Great, very good. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your inputs. We'll just do a short wrap up now, and then we'll proceed to a networking luncheon.